use of dishonesty, fraud, and deceit to organize fraudulent slates of electors and cause them to transmit false certifications to Congress. As Trump's attempts to obstruct the electoral vote through deceit of state officials met with repeated failure, beginning in early December of 2020, he and co-conspirators developed a new plan to marshal individuals who would have served as Trump's electors had he won the popular vote. In 7 targeted states, Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, and cause those individuals to make and send to the vice president and Congress false certifications that they were legitimate electors. Under the plan, the submission of these fraudulent slates would create a fake controversy at the certification proceeding and position the vice president presiding on January 6 as president of the Senate to supplant legitimate electors with Trump's fake electors and certify Trump as president. The plan capitalized on ideas presented in memoranda drafted by co-conspirator 5, an attorney who was assisting Trump's campaign with legal efforts related to a recount in Wisconsin. The memoranda evolved over time from a legal strategy to preserve Trump's rights to a corrupt plan to subvert the federal government function by stopping Biden's electors' votes from being counted and certified as follows.
The November 18 memorandum, Wisconsin memo, advocated that because of the ongoing recount in Wisconsin, Trump's electors there should meet and cast votes on December 14th, the date the ECA required appointed electors to vote to preserve the alternative of Trump's Wisconsin elector slate in the event Trump ultimately prevailed in the state. The December 6 memorandum, fraudulent elector memo, marked a sharp departure from co-conspirator 5's Wisconsin memo, advocating that the alternate electors originally conceived of to preserve rights in Wisconsin instead be used in a number of states as fraudulent electors to prevent Biden from receiving the 270 electoral votes necessary to secure the presidency on January 6th.
The fraudulent elector memo suggested that Trump's electors in 6 purportedly contested states, Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, should meet and mimic as best as possible the actions of the legitimate Biden electors, and that on January 6th, the vice president should open and count the fraudulent votes, setting up a fake controversy that would derail the proper certification of Biden as president-elect. The December 9 memorandum, fraudulent elector instructions, consisted of co-conspirator 5's instructions on how fraudulent electors could mimic legitimate electors in Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Co-conspirator 5 noted that in some states it would be virtually impossible for the fraudulent electors to successfully take the same steps as the legitimate electors because state law required formal participation in the process by state officials or access to official resources.
The plan began in early December, and ultimately, the conspirators and Trump's campaign took the Wisconsin memo and expanded it to any state that Trump claimed was contested, even New Mexico, which Trump had lost by more than 10% of the popular vote. This expansion was forecast by emails Trump's chief of staff sent on December 6th, forwarding the Wisconsin memo to campaign staff and writing, "We just need to have someone coordinating the electors for states." On December 6th, Trump and co-conspirator 2 called the chairwoman of the Republican National Committee to ensure that the plan was in motion. During the call, co-conspirator 2 told the chairwoman that it was important for the RNC to help Trump's campaign gather electors in targeted states and falsely represented to her that such electors' votes would be used only if ongoing litigation in one of the states changed the results in Trump's favor. After the RNC chairwoman consulted the campaign and heard that work on gathering electors was underway, she called and reported the information to Trump, who responded approvingly. On December 7th, co-conspirator 1 received the Wisconsin memo and the fraudulent elector memo. Co-conspirator 1 spoke with co-conspirator 6 regarding attorneys who could assist in the fraudulent elector effort in the targeted states, and he received from co-conspirator 6 an email identifying attorneys in Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin.
The next day, on December 8th, co-conspirator 5 called the Arizona attorney on co-conspirator 6's list. In an email after the call, the Arizona attorney recounted his conversations with co-conspirator 5 as follows. I just talked to the gentleman who did that memo, co-conspirator 5. His idea is that basically all of us, Georgia, Wisconsin, Arizona, Pennsylvania, etc., have our electors send in their votes, even though the votes aren't legal under federal law because they are not signed by the governor, so that members of Congress can fight about whether they should be counted on January 6th. They could potentially argue that they're not bound by federal law because Congress made the law, etc. Kind of wild, creative. I'm happy to discuss. My comment to him was that I guess there's no harm in it, legally at least, i.e. we would just be sending in fake electoral votes to Pence so that someone in Congress can make an objection when they start counting votes and start arguing that the fake votes should be counted. At co-conspirator 1's direction on December 10th, co-conspirator 5 sent to points of contact in all targeted states except Wisconsin, which had already received his memos, and New Mexico, a streamlined version of the Wisconsin memo, which did not reveal the intended fraudulent use of Trump's electors and the fraudulent elector instructions, along with the fraudulent elector certificates.
The next day, on December 11th, through co-conspirator 5, co-conspirator 1 suggested that the Arizona lawyer file a petition for certiorari in the Supreme Court as a pretext to claim that litigation was pending in the state, to provide cover for the convening and voting of Trump's fraudulent electors there. Co-conspirator 5 explained that co-conspirator 1 had heard from a state official and state provisional elector that, quote, it could appear treasonous for the Arizona electors to vote on Monday if there is no pending court proceeding, close quote. To manage the plan in Pennsylvania, on December 12th, co-conspirator 1, co-conspirator 5, and co-conspirator 6 participated in a conference call organized by Trump's campaign with Trump's electors in that state. When Trump's electors expressed concern about signing certificates representing themselves as legitimate electors, co-conspirator 1 falsely assured them that their certificates would only be used if Trump succeeded in litigation. Subsequently, co-conspirator 6 circulated proposed conditional language to that effect for potential inclusion in the fraudulent elector certificates. A campaign official cautioned not to offer the conditional language to other states because, quote, the other states are signing what he prepared. If it gets out we change the language for Pennsylvania, it could snowball. In some cases, Trump's electors refused to participate in the plan. On December 13th, co-conspirator 5 sent co-conspirator 1 an email memorandum that further confirmed the conspirators' plan was not to use the fraudulent electors only in the circumstance that Trump's litigation was successful in one of the targeted states. Instead, the plan was to falsely present the fraudulent slates as an alternative to the legitimate slates at Congress's certification proceeding. On December 13th, Trump asked the senior campaign advisor for an update of what was going on with the elector plan and directed him to, quote, put out a statement on electors. As a result, co-conspirator 1 directed the senior campaign advisor to join a conference call with him, co-conspirator 6, and others. When the senior campaign advisor related these developments in text messages to the deputy campaign manager, a senior advisor to Trump, and a campaign staffer, the deputy campaign manager responded, "Here's the thing, the way this is morphed. It's a crazy play, so I don't know who wants to put their name on it." The senior advisor wrote, quote, "certifying illegal votes." In turn, the participants in the group text message refused to have a statement regarding electors attributed to their names because none of them could, quote, "stand by it."
Also, on December 13th, at a campaign staffer's request, co-conspirator 5 drafted and sent fraudulent elector certificates for Trump's electors in New Mexico, which had not previously been among the targeted states, and where there was no pending litigation on Trump's behalf. The next day, Trump's campaign filed an election challenge suit in New Mexico at 11:54 a.m., 6 minutes before the noon deadline for the electors' votes, as a pretext so that there was pending litigation there at the time the fraudulent electors voted.
On December 14th, the legitimate electors of all 50 states and the District of Columbia met in their respective jurisdictions to formally cast their votes for president, resulting in a total of 232 electoral votes for Trump and 306 for Biden. The legitimate electoral votes that Biden won in the states that Trump targeted and Trump's margin of defeat were as follows: Arizona, 11 electoral votes, 10,457 votes. Georgia, 16 electoral votes, 11,779 votes. Michigan, 16 electoral votes, 154,188 votes. Nevada, 6 electoral votes, 33,596 votes. New Mexico, 5 electoral votes, 99,720 votes. Pennsylvania, 20 electoral votes, 80,555 votes. And Wisconsin, 10 electoral votes, 20,682 votes.
On the same day, at the direction of Trump and co-conspirator 1, fraudulent electors convened sham proceedings in the 7 targeted states to cast fraudulent elector ballots in favor of Trump. In some states, in order to satisfy legal requirements set forth for legitimate electors under state law, state officials were enlisted to provide the fraudulent electors access to state capitol buildings so that they could gather and vote there. In many cases, however, as co-conspirator 5 had predicted in the fraudulent elector instructions, the fraudulent electors were unable to satisfy the legal requirements. Nonetheless, as directed in the fraudulent elector instructions, shortly after the fraudulent electors met on December 14th, the targeted states' fraudulent elector certificates were mailed to the President of the Senate, the Archivist of the United States, and others. Trump and co-conspirators ultimately used the certificate of these fraudulent electors to deceitfully target the government function, and did so contrary to how fraudulent electors were told they would be used.
Unlike those of the fraudulent electors, consistent with the ECA, the legitimate electors' signed certificates were annexed to the state executive certificates of ascertainment before being sent to the President of the Senate and others. That evening at 6:26 p.m., the RNC chairwoman forwarded to Trump, through his executive assistant, an emailed title, Electors Recap Final, which represented that in the 6 contested states, Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, Trump's electors had voted in parallel to Biden's electors. Trump's executive assistant responded, "It's in front of him."